Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here today with us. We are painting this beautiful painting. We have two adaptations of this. We've got the Love. It's a vintage pickup truck with a beautiful barn here. We also have this one. They are very similar, so similar that the tutorial can work for both designs. When I taught this live, we had these two options, and so you can do either one. So these are the color visuals. So we'll have these out. And then let me push this off to the side here. And then we're going to talk about our setup. All right. So your painting kit will come with a 9x12, and these are your traceable line art sheets. And then we have graphite paper that will come with that as well. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I've got one that is pre-done. It's a little bit smaller than I have from the past, but yours will be 9x12. But basically how you want to set this up, and I do have an entire tutorial on just the tracing part if you want more information, but you want to make sure that the shiny side is up and the more dull side is facing your canvas. And I've got some little tape that comes with your kit, so we'll tape it up here at the very top. Basically just like that. Then we'll line up that line art right over the top. Make sure it's nice and even. And I'm not actually going to do it for this class, but you get the general idea there. So make sure it's in the center and tape just right up here at the top. You want to make sure this is all nice and free so you can check your work while you trace, make sure it's transferring, you get all the details in place. That's very important. Because once you lift this off, then it's, really hard to, put it back in place. And really impossible to completely line it up. So make sure you get all those beautiful details in place. And then you can completely lift this off. So you can use either design. We have both of these on our website at tipsyartist.com, but we've got the Love Barn, we've got the Bless Barn. So I'm going to go ahead and place these off to the side for right now. And this too. All right. Okay, so let's jump ahead. This one's already done. So initially the transfer will look like pencil on your canvas. And so we've got our pencil that we used to go ahead and basically all we did was we just did a hard line trace right over that imagery and it transferred it to our canvas here. Little helpful hints on the lettering. You always want to make sure that when you did the trace, always go around those negative holes in the lettering. That way you won't close those off with the dark shadow. So again, make sure you make that line around the outside of that. So once you've got your tracing done with your pencil, you can place this off to the side. Then your kit also comes with a permanent marker, and I use this to do hardline work. So this really comes in handy with the painting process on this one. It provides a really nice blackened look for these types of details that come in underneath that old distressed crimson red. So you can see how that looks here from my other acrylic painting. It'll just really look beautiful underneath that paint. So it's going to be a really nice touch, and it really helps keep your trace in place underneath the paint. It's just a really nice cheat. So I go ahead and use that and get all that work done. And then you can go ahead and just pause the video now so you can get all caught up with all that. And then we'll go ahead and start the painting process. So I'm going to go ahead and place this over to the side because we're done using those. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start to talk about our paint here. Redecorate here a little bit. I'm going to get these visuals in place so you can still see those. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up our brand new paint. So your kit will come with this lovely paint set here and your brushes. So we've got, in fact, let's talk about that real quick. So we have our mama brush, and then we have our little buddy, and then we have our little bit. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and open this up here. Looks like a little hole in there. It's going. Ta-da. All right. All right, and then you'll have a couple of mixing plates in the kit too. All right. So let me get this one a little bit. Let's switch. I have my mixing plates nearby. All right, and I've got water too. So now we're all set. So again, the kit comes with everything you need. The only thing you will have to run and get on your own will be your bucket of water here, but everything else is there for y'all. All right, so let's go ahead and start to paint. I'm very excited. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start to work on our sky. And let me back up here real quick. This was a bit more of a soft line around the green, so I did leave that just with the pencil line, but everything else I blackened in because that's really going to help us when we start to paint over the top of that. All right, well, we're going to work on our blue sky first. So I am going to grab some primary cyan blue. And it's brand new, so I have to take off this little silver foil liner. So there's a little clip there. You'll want to grab hold of that and lift that off. All right, and I'm going to do just a little squeeze there, and we'll get a nice, generous, about a dime size amount. And then I'm going to go ahead and get some titanium white. Take this off to the side. And keep in mind, it's really important to reseal your paint whenever you're done. Let's do more of like a nickel-sized dollop on that one. So always reseal because these paints will have really long-lasting life for you. But if you leave the caps open, then they'll dry up, and that's very sad because you'll get a lot of use out of these. I'll use my paint set many times for 3 or 4 different paintings, so it's really good value on that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start with my mama brush, and I'm going to go ahead and let her take a little dip into the water, and we're going to do a little pat down here to dry off. That just gets the brush just slightly moist and flexible, because sometimes when they're brand new, they can be a little bit stiff. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up that white and push a little bit of that off to the side. And then we're going to do a little corner touch of that blue. Let's just start with that much. So that's a really pretty, beautiful light blue there. All right, so there's light blue. Now, this is kind of a taste preference thing. If you want to keep it more just light blue, you are more than welcome to, and you can kind of vary back and forth between this darker blue and the lighter blue. I like to add just a hint of iridium to this because it just adds a little tiny touch of that turquoise in the sky, which I really think is very vibrant and beautiful. I'm going to do a little touch of iridium too. So just a little tiny pea-size amount there. So we're going to just barely touch into that. We're going to push that in and see how that kind of just changes it. Just makes it a little bit more like a jewel tone in the sky. So I like that viridian in there. It's very pretty. And if you feel like it gets a little bit too green, then you can always push back a little bit more blue in there. Just make some little minor adjustments and get it to where you like it. All right, and I'm going to add just a little bit of water now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start to push this across my sky, just sweeping horizontal strokes, just back and forth. Add a little bit of water, and we're going to do some firm pressure, and a little bit of water over the lettering there. And what that'll do is it'll sweep that blue sky behind that lettering. And let's bring that a little bit closer. But especially as that dries, see all of that tracing that you did, it's just going to bleed right through. And we really want that. That's going to help us. That way we'll come back at the very end and we'll fill that in. Now a little bit more water here, start to smooth this in. And you can also pick up a little bit of some pure white and kind of drag that through. Looks like a little bit of cloud cover throughout our sky, just kind of streaking through the color there. It's very pretty. And I'm going to go ahead and start to do my cutting work here around the edge of the barn. All right, so cutting work there. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of push in a little bit of blue around this as well. Go ahead and get that cutting work done. Now I'll continue cutting in, just sweeping horizontal strokes. And I'll follow up with a little bit more of the white too. So we're just getting the base down here. And I'm going to go ahead and position my brush a little bit more. I'm going to turn that handle more over to the side, help feather out those strokes, blend that in. This will give me a lighter hand. And then let's touch into a little bit of white, kind of pull that across. Really light touches, and then lightly drag it across here. And lightly drag it across. And you can even take a little bit of that pure blue, a tiny touch of that, and kind of lightly pull that through too. While the paint's still wet, that's also important. You gotta make sure that paint's still wet. Just a light, soft blend between wet paint to wet paint, and those color variations. Oh, and I'm gonna do a little bit more of that blue right through the center. All right, that's beautiful. And keep in mind, again, when this dries, that's all going to bleed right through. So we're going to be able to touch back into that. If you have a bit more of a heavier hand and you're just really a little bit frightened that you're not going to be able to see that lettering, you can add a little bit of water, firm pressure, and help kind of thin that paint out above those words. That'll help you out a lot. All right, I'm going to go ahead and rinse out and then dry off. All right, beautiful. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead, decisions, what I want to do next here. Let's go ahead and work on the barn next. That'll be fun. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab some cadmium red. Oops, forgot. I'm not used to using new paint. Okay. Let's do a nice little dime-sized dollop there. And I want to cool this red off just a tad. It's very warm at this stage. So I'm going to add a little bit of some primary magenta. So this will turn it to more of a cool red. So I'm just going to do just a little tiny touch of that. And then we need a little bit of black nearby. This is some of our Mars black, and this helps bring in a little bit of that crimson look to it. Just a teeny pea size amount. Okay. All right, so we're gonna grab Mama again. She's all clean. She's had her bath. She's dried off. We're gonna go ahead and pick up some of that bright cadmium red, a little bit of that primary magenta. We're gonna work that in, cool that red off a little bit. And now it's more cool red. Isn't that pretty? All right, and then just very gently, tiniest touch you can grab of that black. And that's going to pull that to a crimson red. It's going to get a little bit darker, a bit more. See how much that gets kind of crazy super fast. I did want to show you that because you can see how overpowering it can be so quickly. So we're going to grab a little more red. That went very dark very quickly. And that was just the super teeny amount of that black. You can see how quickly it changes. All right, we're going to go ahead and work this into the barn. And the beautiful thing about all that marker work that we did initially, all that's going to bleed through. We're just going to kind of work this back and forth here into that shape. Do some nice little light vertical pulls here into that shape, but you can see it's just bleeding right through. It's really nice. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that darkened red. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull the brush in the direction that the wood would go. So it's going to go to a slight diagonal angle down. Let's grab a little bit more of that mix. Cadmium red, primary magenta, teeny dab of the black, super tiny amount. So let's do some quick pulls here. Very light hands. You're going to turn that hand over to the side where the flat side of the brush is facing the canvas. If you find that your hand is like this, it's going to apply more pressure. It's going to dig into that paint and scrape a lot of it off. So again, it's kind of a bit more of an awkward hold, but that's what gives you more of a gentle touch. And so you want to hold that brush, again, parallel to the canvas. And then start to work this over the top. There's some of these nice, smooth, vertical pulls in here. You can add a little bit of water too to help it really flow into the pores of the canvas. A little bit more water. I'm going to go ahead and get into all this section here that's that color. Again, if you're doing this design here, again, you're just going to fill in everything that's that red color. And nice vertical pulls there. And a little bit more water. And again, the inking that we did initially, it's bleeding through beautifully. That's really nice. That's what we want. All right, so I'm going to grab a little bit more of the black now. A teeny bit more. I'm going to darken that up. A little bit more dramatic. And we're going to come in underneath that roof line and just do a little touch more of that dramatic black. I'll darken that up, create a little bit of a shadow. Follow that along there. Again, light, gentle hand. Let's go ahead and hold the brush parallel to the canvas. And then we're going to just do some pulls. Gentle vertical pulls. I'll get into those corners there, just pull down. And then kind of darken up this little, just very lightly kind of touch at the line edge of the brush, kind of go back over that line again. Let me kind of drag it across here. And we have a little bit more of a completely blackened in spot here, so I'm going to pick up a lot of black. Just kind of push that in for that little old hole of a window that's kind of peeking through there. There's another one in there. And another one here is like a barn door that's peeking through. And just real light little touches in there. All right, so it's looking really great. I'll do a little bit more black in here. Let's get this out. And now we need to mix up some brown, a little bit of a fun golden color to come into the inside of this barn. And if you're working on this one, then you're going to mix up the same color scheme that we're working out to work inside the barn here. That's what you're going to use to do that accent work here. All right, so let's grab, do some cadmium orange. Some out there, lovely. And then let's grab some more black because we're going to mix our Mars black and our orange together. That's how we're going to get brown. Titanium white. We're going to do another little dollop. We're going to need some of that. And perhaps add of yellow. That would be helpful to help lighten that up a little bit. And again, just a gentle reminder, please remember to cap your paint. It'll last for a long time if it's capped. Okay. All right, let's take our little buddy here and we're going to start by mixing up that brown. So I'm going to do a little bit of black with our orange. And that's very, like almost like a dark teak brown to begin with. So I'm going to keep adding some orange until I get to more of like a chocolate brown, which is what I want. Okay, we'll have little touches of orange in there too. So I'll go ahead and move that into the parts that are kind of shadows in here. A nice light covering it. Let's grab a little bit of water. I'm just going to go ahead and work it all in. A little bit of water. So we can still see our trace and our black through there. It just makes it a little easier. I still see that's the beauty of that trace in the beginning with the permanent marker. So I still see that bleeding through there. All right, now we need to lighten up a little bit. So I'm going to grab some white. There's my light brown. You can have a bit of orange too if you really want to warm it up even more. And a little yellow too. That's kind of nice. Some of that khaki feel. Now we're going to do a little pull in here. Again, it's just kind of a nice abstracted reference to some old wood happening here. And I'm going to do a little line in there. Putting the brush more like a vertical, and then sweep across for a line here. And then here. A little bit more light. And drag it across. And then here. Just light little touches. And kind of just do little pushes here and there, little lines. That look pretty old in there. Good job. All right. So got a good look happening there. Love it. And then if you're working on this design, you would have been using your little bit brush, and you can do a little twirl. Actually, let's get a little water. I'm doing a little twirl. You could add a little bit more yellow too to warm it up a little bit. And a twirl, twist that brush into a nice fine point. And then that can also, can do like those little designs like that. Or here you can kind of play and do a little bit of that sketchy look, you know, if you want to be a little bit more messy in here. All right, let's go ahead and rinse out. Okay, that is looking quite lovely. I'm going to go ahead and use little bit brush now. And speaking more to just this barn here, this one is just more of that crimson with the black, but this one has a little more of some brown highlights. I'm going to go ahead and come back in with that dark chocolate brown, little bit brush. And I'm just going to kind of put some of this in vertical strokes through the barn. Just add a little bit of texture, a little bit of water. Just little tiny vertical lines, just a little reference there, additional color. And we're going to do a little sweep of that brown right in through here. And just kind of sweep down a little bit. That diagonal. Go to that khaki color, and we're going to do a little highlight line right up at the top there. Looking really great. Now let's go ahead and rinse out. Let's start to work in some of that beautiful green. So I'm going to grab some cadmium green. A pretty big dollop there, about a nickel size amount of that on your plate. So nickel sized off of that. And then we're going to go back and use our mama brush. I'm going to start to mix that in. And I've got some black nearby, so I'm going to go ahead and work that in a little bit, darken that up. You can also use a little bit of that brown too. That's nice in there too. And I'm going to start to just kind of pounce this over the top, just a little tap, tap, tap. And then I like to add a little bit of the light color in there as well, so I can pick up a little bit of that yellow. I'll grab a little bit of that orange too. That's kind of funny. And I tap that in. Create some nice texture. And then tap, tap, tap. Make sure and overlap over the sky. And just continue tapping. And grabbing a little bit of that yellow in there too, and just working that in really helps create some nice texture. Coming in a little bit over the barn. We're going to have to start to get tidy when we get near the truck. So I'm going to do a little bit of cutting work. And then doing tap, tap right there. It's coming in over the top of the barn. If you see a line of barn there and you want to obscure that, add a little bit more black to that green and then kind of tap, tap, tap over the top. And that'll help obscure that. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to need to get a little wash of some more precise green. We're going to work this in and then we're going to get free again, but I'm going to be a little bit more precise and just line this in. The bottom, and that green, so that clean and out of black. And just get a nice wash of color. Kind of smooth this out. I'm going to come back in with that texture again here in a second. But I need to make sure I get total green coverage in here. And this is some shadow, so I'm just going to wash over that with the green, and we'll texture it here in a minute. Okay, a little bit of black, come back in into the green, and then get a nice wash. Get our wash all in here too. A nice wash of green, and then we'll come back in and do some texture work. Coming in with that black and green, and continue just, now that we have that wash, we're going to be a little bit more free now. And texture over the top, gradually kind of add in that yellow as we work that in. And very carefully kind of just tap right next to this. The side of the brush, get real close, but be careful. And if you want to use your little buddy too, you can. And you get real close to that edge. Do a little bit of that tapping. Using the smaller brush when you're doing your cutting work. That little buddy also works well too. I'll just tap with the line edge of the brush. That way I can get real close with that texture. I'm going to tap on the top this time too. That helps us get into that space. It's really creating that really pretty texture over the top. And as this is a little bit darker, I'm going to add a little bit more of that black and tap more of that blackish green over where we created that shadow. See, that's there for us as a guide. Just tap right over that. And add a little bit more black. And then tap over that blackened area. You can touch into a little bit of green in there too, just to kind of give that texture. And a little tire comes in here, so I get right next to it. A little bit of an angle there. That one I'm going to lighten up. One yellow. And then again, just kind of tap, tap, tap. And my green and yellow now. I still have a lot of black in there to kind of help create some more of that shadow. And just tap, tap, tap. That really pretty texture. And you can do a few little tiny pulls here. There's a little bit of grass coming up out of the barn. Teeny little pulls. And then let's come back over and feather in a little bit of that texture over the top. And then you can use a little bit more like pure black and kind of add in little shadows here and there. Just kind of tap those in. All right, so that's a really nice dark green. If you want to make yours a little bit lighter, you certainly can. So you can also come back in with a lot more of the yellow and just kind of lightly tap that in too. And then the highlights in there. All right, very pretty. All right, I'm going to go ahead and rinse out. Oh, I forgot some crimson red. I just see it, like it really pops out to me now. It's right up here in the window, so I'm going to come back in with my little buddy brush, and I still have a little bit of that red, a little bit of black with it, that crimson, and we're going to go ahead and work that into that front window there. And kind of going by that right there. And that's going to be the easiest. And then I'm going to tap in a little bit of that green and do a little line right through here. Our line goes right there. So we have a little bit of green peeking through that window. It's just kind of barely overlapping over the barn. Right there. All right, it's going to rinse out. All right, now we're going to go back to our turquoise color for the truck. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little bit brush and grab some water and do a little bit of that blue, some of that viridian, just as a reminder of viridian, like that. Primary cyan blue there. And then we're going to be using some titanium white. So those are the colors that we're using. I still have these from the sky. Get all those. Let's add some water. And let's go ahead and put this into our truck here. Just light, gentle hand. Now the door has a different color, so we're going to avoid that, but we're going to come in like right over the top of the truck here. Water. And then kind of hold the brush more like a pencil. That helps you get in those little corners there. It's just filling this in, that solid kind of turquoise color right over the top. And this blue, we're just going to do a nice wash of it over a lot of those details with the lines around the edge there, because those lines will bleed through. And then even in here, it's just going to be that. So a little bit of water. And the black line work, the inking that we did, see, it's going to bleed through. And that's what we want. That will come to help us. And it's blue in this part of the truck too. Back up here on this one little put your red right in there underneath the steering wheel. All right, there we go. Go back to that turquoise. And then we're gonna one here. Take this through. And continue working this in on the body of the truck. And right up underneath that wooden part on top of the truck there. And we still have our inking underneath. That's going to help us here in a little bit when we start to do some of our shadow work. Again, just getting a nice smooth amount of our turquoise right over the top. And a lot of water to it. Almost kind of has a watercolor feel now in some of these parts. All right, let's go ahead and move a little bit. And then I'm going to start to use, let's see, we have this nice khaki color which comes in hands. I'm going to do a little bit of orange, a little bit of that black. We're going to get this mix happening again. A little bit of white. And let's grab some yellow in there too. And it's going to be a nice little color to add in, a little twirl in there. So it adds a nice little amount of some distress here. So I'm going to do a little sweep right here of that color, that little accent. And again, just slightly kind of drag it. And then do a little pull down. And then come in and just grab a little bit of a wet brush. Just kind of softly go over that. Softly kind of feather that out there. All right, so now it looks a little bit more rusty over the top. I'll do a little bit more of a touch of that. Again, this is that brown and white and yellow that we mixed up. And I'll go over the head a little bit here and just do a light little drag. I'll softly work in some of that in that little area. And then a little touch of it. And right here, just a little tiny pull, it's like a little accent. And then this color is also helpful. It's a little bit of that. This is on the tire, but the light's reflecting on the top here, so it's more of this true color of the shading here. And more of the highlight. We're going to do little tiny touches, just kind of barely kind of dot along here. And then a few little vertical pulls in here. And a little push of it in here. That'll help make a distinction on the tire near the ground. And again, a little touch of it here as well. A half circle of reflective light around the edge of the tire. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of black and a little bit of white. I'm going to push a little bit of gray into that. A little bit of water. And I'm going to go ahead and do this front part of the wheel. Circle in there. And just a little line. Little thin line. So let's do a little twirl into it. Thicker around that turn. And then in here. And we're going to do a little bit more of that grayish color in here. And then in here. That's that paint flow. I'm gonna do a little ring of white, or it's not white, actually, it's more of a soft gray. We're gonna do a little ring of white around it here too. Mm, a little bit more of that water. And we want more of this khaki, but I'm gonna lighten it up quite a bit. I'm gonna start to work on this little door here. A little more yellow and more water. And my little rooster. And I can touch into a little bit more of that darker brown too. And push that in a little bit, make it look a little pop. It's that old look. Good little lines through there. Rinse out. And then I'm going to come in with my mama brush here. A little bit of water. And more of this is that khaki color we had mixed up. I'm going to do a wash of this over the wood here. And let's put that in. At this point, you're very glad you worked so hard on all your inking in the beginning because it really helps and make it all come together. Oh, that's looking great. Okay. All right. Little touches in here. All right. Okay. And that's that. I'm going to start to come into more black now. A little bit of water, a little bit brush. It's our smallest brush and our black. And I'm going to this into the tire. Make those really pop with their shapes. And just continue blowing this in. And then there's a lot more of this darkening in with the black. Now it's going to start to bring in the shadow. A little bit of water. That way it can be a little bit of that watery black, and it's going to help. It's going to kind of sketch that in over the top. And the crisscross action here. Reinforcing that shadow underneath here. See, we have our inking done here, so we can do a little bit of a simulation there with our brush and just do a little bit of that crisscross there. So curve there. Light, watery black, just kind of doing all those shadows. And use a lot of water with that black. It really kind of helps work it in just the right consistency. I'm going to reinforce the shadow underneath here. Move that in. I'll curve it up right there. And we're going here. A little bit of that black in the center. A little bit of black here in the center. Around in a circle. I'm going to need this with that black to help reinforce that shadow. And tap in over our inking. You can see it behind there. Kind of tap in over the top. All right, again, lots of water in with that black. And we're going to start to come in over our inking and just kind of reinforce right over the top, basically. Just almost like when we traced in the beginning, we're just going to trace right over it again. It's going to feel like that, but it's just the black, watery black kind of over the top there. Let me put one for the shadow, come back in. Again, lots of water with that black. And if it gets a little bit dark and you don't like it, you can make it a little bit more subtle. You can take a little piece of your napkin here and get a little corner. And you can just kind of touch down on it, while it's still a little wet, and kind of touch into it, kind of soften it a little bit too. That's another option there. And my watery black again. And remember those lines. Basically just kind of following where we have the inking, reinforcing that. top. Right hand. And then a lot of this is shadowed in here too. A little bit more water. And kind of take it down a little bit of a diagonal stroke here. Again, that little bit of shadow over the top. I'm gonna put more of that brown. That's kind of that khaki color that we mixed up. I'm gonna do a little light line across in here. More water with that too. Right in here. And let's touch our steering wheel with that too. So right in there. There's our steering wheel. Get a push of that khaki put there. Again here. And do some little vertical pulls for some texture in here. A few little touches in here, little vertical lines. All right, it's looking good. I'm going to do a little, grab a little bit of this orange, kind of warm this up a little bit. This is that khaki color we have. Just a teeny bit of orange to it. And we'll make the breast of the chicken or the rooster in here with that. Or chicken, actually. Really help that flow into that. Oh, doggy's coming nearby. Yeah. And then let's grab a little bit, well, we need some more out cadmium red and a little more touch of that. Well, it's going to touch into that. Nice warm cadmium red. We're going to touch that into the top, that crown there. And there's our tiny little beak. A little touch of red right there. And there's a little touch of red in here. It's out. And then let's grab some more of this viridian and the blue. I want this to be pretty vibrant. Lots of Viridian, a little touch of blue in there too. And let's twirl it out. And then we're going to do a little pull. And then we're going to lift off with a light hand. And just like that. And let's get a little twirl into that black, nice fine point. And we're just going to touch over the little feet here. A little bit water and more of that black. And we're just going to kind of drag it across some of those lines here in the barn. Light little verticals. Just kind of throwing in a few little extra pieces of contrast in here. And some vertical pulls into that texture of the wood. Okay. Coming back and looking over our truck here, you can continue working in a little touch of this khaki with that Viridian. That's a nice mix of that old looking paint there. So we're going to kind of go over the top. Let's got a little bit of white. I think it's our turquoise, but there's a little bit of that khaki mixed in with it. Just kind of makes it a little bit old. So I'm going to work that in. A few little touches of detail in here. I'll tap that in here. Let's grab a little bit more of this brown now. We'll do orange and black. A bit of water. And my little bit brush and do a little twirl. And add a little bit of some texture here and a little string. Almost like a little pull and then a little bit of a soft curve, like a parenthesis stroke of the texture there. All right. Now, my recommendation on the lettering is I kind of like for it to look very kind of old and distressed, and I feel like it looks that because we have the inking underneath, and so the paint over the top kind of makes it just look very old. So I'm going to leave mine the way it is. And then, unless you just love the look of a fresh coat of paint, you can always, I would let this completely set up and dry, and you can use your permanent marker to re-ink that if you like the look of it. So I think it looks good, just very distressed. Now, this lettering up here, it's completely dry. And I do like for this to look hard black and have a really nice, want it to really stand out. So I do want to ink this. And to me, it's so much easier to do the ink. And I want to make sure I don't put my hand in wet paint. But basically, you're going to be able to just follow along here. And again, watch the negative space on the lettering. You want to be sure that you don't close it up. So you take your line around. Looking down. Just follow it. That's a really tiny little hole for that L. So again, you want to really go around the negative space so it doesn't get closed off. And then here. You can see how the more you fill it in, it really starts to take shape. You just follow it. It's really easy when if this is completely dry, then you can be a lot more free with it. I'm trying to be really careful so that I don't disrupt any wet paint. You could always just pause me, let it dry, and come back. With that area. All right. So that's beautiful. And you can also use your Sharpie to do your signature, which is really nice. You do have to make sure this, again, really has to be completely dry. I think mine's pretty good, so I can go ahead and do a little signature. Okay, like that. And then something else you can do too, which is kind of fun, if you can, if this again has to be dry, because if you put this on wet paint, it'll just kill your marker instantly. So you don't want that to happen. But you can also come in here and firm up little lines if you wanted to. So it's a really handy tool. And like in here, if you wanted to darken up anything, you could do that with your permanent marker. So it's a great tool. But I'm kind of digging on how this looks a little bit, just kind of nice and old and distressed in here. So I don't want anything just too darkened up. But yeah, I think I am done. Looks really great. So yeah, there we are. Very nice. Okay, so this is our beautiful little fresh eggs vintage truck and has a cute little chicken or rooster. It's actually probably a rooster. Now that I'm looking at it, it's got the little cone and everything. So This is lovely. I love it. Turned out great. Thank y'all so much for joining me today. And again, all the supplies that you need are on our website at tipsyartist.com. And I'll be sure to leave a link for this in the description. And again, just thank you so much for joining us, and y'all have a beautiful rest of the day. Much love to y'all. Toodles.